Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup. Stage 2, Week 1 results. And what a week it's been. It has lived up to what I would hope it would be. Okay, first things first. As I thought, GOATS is not completely gone. It's what teams are going to fall back to as a sort of stable comp that they know how to play. And some teams have even improved on the GOATs they showed in Stage 1. Yes, I'm looking at you, London Spitfire. But we've seen so much variety in Week 1, and it spells really good things for this stage. I said this on Twitter that we might actually see a stage that's so diverse, it might be the best stage we've ever seen, because everyone gets to play so many different things. To put this in perspective, we have seen every single hero this week, apart from Ash, which kind of surprised me, because normally it's Symmetra we don't see, but we've even seen Symmetra, non-ironically played by the Chengdu Hunters on Attack of King's Row. We have seen so many different things. We've seen Bunker, we've seen triple DPS with Wrecking Ball, we've seen Profit on Wrecking Ball, we've seen Bumpers Farah, yep, that happened. We've seen so much stuff. And most of these heroes we've seen for a minute or more. So they haven't been just, oh, we're getting them out from spawn, dink, Widowmaker shot, and then switch off again. They've been full-blown comps that they've wanted to run, which is awesome. Let's get into our results here, because there's an incredible amount of results to go through. First of all, it was the game of the week. It was the Philadelphia Fusion taking on New York Excelsior. And it turned out not to be the game of the week. New York Excelsior 4-0'd this. I'm not all that surprised. Fusion are in a funny place right now. I think they're going to be more consistent in this stage than they were last stage. But Fusion, I don't know. I think they're growing into the season somewhat. Their GOATS is still not brilliant, but one thing is that is a bonus this stage is that they get to play Shadow on Winston, which is more of his comfort pick rather than Reinhardt. A similar thing for London and Jester. So after that we had the Boston Uprising taking on the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign lost to Fran, obviously, in the post bit of the stage, if you sort of mean between stages, and they brought in Baby Bay amongst other players, and they look a bit weird right now. Atlanta Reign, they went 2-0 up against Boston, which was actually really good, and then they got reverse swept by Boston. Boston are looking better than expected considering they lost Note. RCK, I think actually we might see RCK bloom at Boston. It seems like he's having really good games at the moment for Boston, so hopefully we get to see more of RCK popping off at Boston, but Boston win this 3-2. Atlanta Reign with work to do. Next up we have the Shanghai Dragons taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators. The Gladiators actually really improved at the end of last stage, and this has continued into stage 2 with them beating the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. I'm not entirely surprised at this result. Shanghai are still working on a few things, and it shows. It's going to be a long journey for Shanghai, and I still believe they can do very well and get into the end of season playoffs, but I don't think they'll be quite where I was expecting them to be. Next up we had the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Paris Eternal. Paris are a team I expect to struggle this stage in some respects. Guangzhou are a team I expected to flourish, and this result went exactly against that. Paris 4-0'd Guangzhou. Guangzhou, and it goes for the rest of this week. Guangzhou look an absolute mess. In terms of their comps and their shot calling and their communication, everything looks just a bit off. Paris, yeah, they looked good in this game. I think Paris is going to be a very up and down team throughout this season. Next up, we had our champions London Spitfire from last season in action against the Florida Mayhem. It was a very weird stage 1 for London and a bad stage 1 for Florida. But this is actually a close game, and really from a London perspective it shouldn't have been. It was 2-1 to London in the end. But it shouldn't have been that close. There's no way it should have been that close. Player for player, team-wise, in every respect, London are better than Florida. So, it's going to be a long journey for Florida, because they now have massive changes to their roster, but I think it will look up in the end. In the end, it's going to be a long, long time though. London, hopefully this is a springboard for them to push on. Moving on, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Toronto Defiant. Again, no surprises here. Toronto win this one 3-1 fairly easily. Washington Justice again looking that bit below par compared to the other teams in the league. After that, we had the winless Los Angeles Valiant in their only game this week against, oh dear, the San Francisco Shock. I wonder how this worked out. 4-0 for the Shock. Valiant. Valiant. What do we do with you? There'll be some easier games this stage. You're not going to get your first win against Shock. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Seoul Dynasty. Close game. Close game. But Gladiators, again, improving. And they do get a 3-2 win over Seoul Dynasty. Two teams I expect to be fighting for like the last stage playoff place. So I'm not surprised this was close. Next up, we had the Florida Mayhem taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. Again, no surprises that Philadelphia Fusion win this one 3-1. Fusion may not be at the top of their game right now, but they're not that bad that they're going to lose to Florida in Stage 2. Yes, they lost to them in Stage 1, but that was pure goats. Let's just make that clear. Next up, we have the Toronto Defiant taking on the Boston Uprising. Now, this is an interesting one. There are a lot of records broken in this week as well. We'll go over that in a minute. But Toronto Defiant were 2-0 up. And Boston win it 3-2. That is a record for 3 straight reverse sweeps by a team. Yes, Boston, you're those sorts of teams. Never put them down because they might just reverse sweep you. That's actually a less than ideal result for Toronto. I expect they wanted a win over... Well, of course they wanted a win over Boston, but they kind of expected to win over Boston. I think Boston are going to be more powerful than we expected this stage. Color Hex is really finding his feet. And Fusion's shot calling is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And the camaraderie in the team looks very, very good. So we're looking at a team to be wary of, I think, Boston Uprising. Next up, we had the New York Excelsior taking on the Shanghai Dragons. Again, no surprises here that New York win this one. Shanghai do get a draw on a map, but it is 3-0 to New York Excelsior. New York Excelsior still going strong, even though they choked in the Stage 1 playoffs. Next up, we have the Chengdu Hunters in action. We love the Chengdu Hunters. Who doesn't love the Chengdu Hunters? Taking on the Paris Eternal. So, Chengdu, I think, made a big play in Stage 1. They were like, we really don't want to play Goats. So I'll tell you what, we know that Goats is going to be nerfed to Stage 2. So let's play a comp that we think will run pretty much for the next 2 stages. Next 2-3 stages. Hence the Wrecking Ball and DPS they played a lot in Stage 1. And now, it's getting results. They 4-0 Paris. Chengdu. That's a team to watch out for this stage, Chengdu. The meta has fallen right into where they want it. Chaos. Absolute chaos. There is no set strategy right now. The teams run what they want to run. Or what they have to run to counter the other team. Which makes these games so ridiculously unpredictable. It's looking really interesting this stage. It really is. Paris just weren't prepared. You are not prepared, Paris, for that. Yes, I think they used the excuse, oh, but we had to play Guangzhou, and then we had to play... Well, I'm sorry. Chengdu had to play Paris in the early morning Sunday in BST or Europe. And then in the early morning of Monday, they had to play Washington. So I don't think that's really an excuse. Come on, Paris. Step it up. Next up, we have the San Francisco Shock taking on the Guangzhou Charge. Again, it's a very bad week for Guangzhou. They get 4-0'd here by Shock. Shock go 8-0 this week, which is very, very good. Shock, again, they had a very difficult stage last stage. And a lot of people are saying, and I tend to agree with them, we can see multiple teams go 7-0 this stage. Excelsior, Titans, Shock, London perhaps even. They don't play each other. So they're playing teams that they are on paper better against. So if they're not to go 7-0 this stage, there's going to be an upset somewhere along the line. It looks interesting this stage. Guangzhou are... they've got some problems to work out, definitely. It's just not clicking. Much like Valiant last stage, and still currently Valiant, it's just not clicking. Not there. But I'm sure Guangzhou will work it out. Next up we have the Atlanta Reign taking on London Spitfire. Now this is a game I found very hard to call before this week started. Because I don't trust London. I don't know what London's going to turn up. They have the Philly Fusion problem of playing down to their opponents very often. That's why we don't see London thrash teams. Atlanta Reign, I expected to not quite be as bad as they are. They are all over the place. The two teams that are all over the place right now are Guangzhou, Atlanta. Oh, I suppose you can throw Valiant into that, but we already knew about Valiant. London Spitfire 4-0 this. Yeah, not even I expected London to 4-0 this. London don't 4-0 teams, but they do. They 4-0 the Atlanta Reign. This is London. It's very difficult to tell against Atlanta because it's whether Atlanta are playing really badly or London are playing really well. Well, actually, I can say that, but Fury played out of his mind. Fury was eating Baby Bay's grabs left, right, and centre. He even ate a May Blizzard, I think, at one point. Fury was insane, and he's definitely in contention for best diva in the league right now. I'd certainly be putting him up there. London, if they can keep on improving and keep playing like this, we should see them in Stage 2 playoffs. Bold statement, I know. But the most difficult game London have this stage, in my opinion, is Chengdu Hunters. So, I think they've got to play Fusion, though. I think they've got to play Fusion, Chengdu, and their bogey team of Houston Outlaws. So, in theory, it is possible for London to go unbeaten this stage. I know London. I don't think that will happen. But I think they should be able to get a good enough win-loss record that they should be able to get into those stage playoffs. Good news for London. Atlanta. Oh. What is it? We can't win without the Fran? Our team chemistry's gone to pot because we can't play Torb? I don't know. It's not any of that. It's just an adjustment period for Atlanta Reign with the Fran retiring, working in Baby Bay and the rest of the new players in the roster. A period of adjustment for Atlanta Reign. I'd expect them to bounce back at some point though. Next up we have our Stage 1 champions, the Vancouver Titans, in action for the first time this stage against the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou, they're a really weird team. Because they play some really odd stuff. On the first defense of Hanamura, they played Orisa as a solo tank. Not protecting anything. That got ripped apart by the goats from Vancouver. Yeah. It was a 4-0 for Vancouver. Vancouver didn't just run goats though. We saw, I believe, McCree from Stitch. We saw Winston from Bumper. We saw a bit of Wrecking Ball. Yes, we did see Farah from Bumper, but that was on last point of King's Row, where basically Vancouver had already won and they were playing with their food. We all know what Vancouver do. So it's interesting, but it's Vancouver being dominant again. I don't even if Hangzhou were playing well, I'd still expect Vancouver to win that one. So no surprises. And the last game of the week was Washington Justice taking on the Chengdu Hunters. Again, no surprises that Chengdu win this one. Although it was 3-1, not the 4-0 I was expecting from Chengdu. But again, Chengdu on a very good path right now. Looking good for Chengdu. Okay, so in terms of records broken this week, King's Row, we had the fastest ever attack on King's Row from, guess who? Vancouver Titans. And that was something like 4 minutes in the bank. 4 or 5 minutes in the bank. Crazy, crazy stuff. We saw all but 3 of the heroes in the whole hero pool played in the Chengdu Hunters versus Washington Justice map. The heroes that weren't played were Reaper, Roadhog, and Ash. Again, as I said earlier on, we've seen every single hero apart from Ash this week, so really interesting. We got to see a good amount of Baptiste as well. We got to see Bunker Comp, we got to see Bastion, we got to see Torb, unironically played. It's really up in the air. And some of it worked. And guess what? We got Pirate Ship back because it's Junkertown. Hey. And I think that's about it. There's another record, I think, but I can't remember what it was. Let's look at our standings. So, it splits up this stage because we have stage standings and overall standings. And our stage standings, they should be either on the left. I think it's on the left. I'm going to put them on the left. On the left, we have our stage standings. On the right, we have our overall standings. You should know by the numbers because the overall standings will be a lot higher. On the stage standings, we have Shurk top with an 8-0 map record because they basically stomped everyone. New York Excelsior second because they tied a map. Chengdu Hunters are third because they lost a map. London fourth. Gladiators 5th, Boston 6th, Vancouver 7th because they've only played 1 game, Toronto Defiant 8th. The 2 Texas teams, Dallas and Houston, didn't play this week, so they are in joint 9th, along with the Paris Eternal. In 12th, we have the Philadelphia Fusion. In 13th, we have the Seoul Dynasty. 14th, or joint 14th, I should say, we have the Hangzhou Spark and Los Angeles Valiant, only playing 1 game this week. And then basically everyone who lost 2 games this week, which is Florida, Washington, Atlanta, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Guangzhou are bottom because they didn't win a map. Currently, Guangzhou are on a 1-14 streak of maps. They've won 1 map and lost 14. Big bad for the Guangzhou charge. Okay, overall standings. What's changed? We have New York Excelsior at the top. We have Vancouver Titans in second. The reason that Vancouver are second is because they played 1 less game than New York. Third, we have the San Francisco Shock. Fourth, we have the Toronto Defiant. Fifth, we have the Boston Uprising. Sixth, we have the Philadelphia Fusion. 7th, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators. 8th, we have London Spitfire, up from about 13th, I believe. 9th, we have Dallas Fuel. 10th, we have Chengdu, who are really making waves now. 11th, we have Seoul Dynasty, the biggest movers going down, our Atlanta Reign in 12th. Houston Outlaws in 13th. Paris Eternal in 14th. Hangzhou Spark in 15th. Guangzhou in 16th, they're possibly your biggest movers as well. Shanghai Dragons in 16th. Washington Justice in 18th, Florida in 19th, and yes, still rooted to the bottom of the league, our Valiant in 20th. Big movers, yeah. Guangzhou, yeah, they're kind of going to where I expected them to be at the start of the season. Similar thing with Paris. London are moving on up. Again, it's going to start to become difficult for London later on. Because, yes, they've had a very slow start to the season, but Stage 3 and 4 is going to be difficult for London. Because in Stage 3 they have to play New York Excelsior twice, and in Stage 4 I believe they have to play Vancouver and Shock. They definitely have to play Vancouver. I'm not sure whether they have to play Shock in Stage 3 or Stage 4. If so, then Stage 3 is going to be an absolute nightmare for London. But London need to get on to that level that they were on last season around Stage 1-ish time, if they want to compete with those teams, because currently I don't think they can. It's looking interesting. Really interesting, and I didn't want this video to be as long as it is, but it is, because there's so many darn fixtures to go through. Next week should be... I don't know whether we'll have any more clarity on the meta. I think it's just heavily map dependent and heavily team dependent. We know what Chengdu are going to run. We know what Chengdu want to run. We've seen London Spitfire run Birdwing on Widowmaker, which is something lovely because we haven't seen Birdwing's Widow all that too much this season. New York Excelsior are comfortable on whatever they need to play. Vancouver look like they are able to adapt, which is something I had question marks about after last stage. Shock, I think, are going to be, as I said in previous videos, good in any meta because they have such good players. We saw Sinatra on Sombra, and he was good on that as well. Super... he could be the best main tank in the league right now. Honestly, yes, he could be. But remember, if we go back into Winston's sort of tank roles, then Gesture starts becoming big for London, and other teams will start getting that opportunity, whereas like Fisher for Seoul won't be as happy on Winston because he prefers his Reinhardt. So it should be interesting. We are going into a very interesting stage. Next week we do have the LA Derby. I don't think that'll be much of a game, to be quite honest. Although the Valiant do take on Atlanta, and if there's any game that I think Valiant could win right now, it's against Atlanta, because Atlanta have got so many problems right now. But I'm going to leave it here. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then!